Hey, welcome back to another episode of Tobacco Road Hooper. In the offseason, I took a look at Louisville after one of the most abysmal seasons I've ever seen, and I thought I could see hope on this roster. I didn't think Louisville needed to reinvent the wheel here. I just thought they needed to improve. And looking at their offseason, the roster turnover, everything, I thought maybe somewhere around a 500 finish, they could be on the edge, on the bubble, getting somewhere near the NCAA, at least make it to an NIT where they can start building towards a future in this new era. Well, here we are a few weeks into the season. Louisville sits at 2-3 at the time of this recording. They beat UMBC by 1 point and Coppin State. I mean, with those two wins, the only things going for them. Was I wrong to have that much faith? Cue the intro.
Down to 7 seconds. You can see the time. Wittenberg. Oh, it's a long ways. 2 seconds. He's got to put it up. And he wins it with the jumper. To the court with Archie Diacono. 3 seconds at midcourt. Jenkins gives it to Jenkins for the championship.
Now, to be fair, maybe I was higher on this team than I should have been. After looking at the offseason, Ken Palm had the Cardinals sitting as the 109th team in all college basketball entering the season. Not counting any games that could get added to it through their in-season tournaments and whatnot, the projection of this team was around a 13-17 finish, which is close to where I was seeing them. I just had them just slightly higher. And for a team that finished last year at 4-28, that's probably not a bad season. Is it how you'd want a historically good program to finish? Absolutely not. But it's hard to rebuild a program in 1 year, especially when the head coach isn't established and doesn't have that name for recruiting. He can't just bring people into his system. I mean, he's starting from scratch. And the ACC preseason rankings had Louisville at the bottom. They had them only ahead of Georgia Tech, Boston College, and Notre Dame, and I'd say those teams are all probably interchangeable in that order. And if we look at it right now, those are the bottom 4 teams in the ACC. Now, here's where I think I went wrong. I saw that the Cardinals had just 4 scholarship returners from last season: Mike James, J.J. Traynor, Brandon Huntley-Hatfield, and Emmanuel Okafor. And my thought process here was, this is a good thing. Kind of like Colorado's situation in football. They had an awful team, and they needed a full reboot. This team just lost 28 games. They needed to cut a lot, start over. Even if they had some talent there, they really needed a culture change, an attitude change. The team needed to evolve, and sometimes you have to do that by taking everything away. Louisville added 2023 prospects Dennis Evans, Caleb Glenn, Curtis Williams Jr., Ty-laur Johnson, D1 transfer Sky Clark, Trey White, Danilo Jovanovic, and JUCO transfer Corn Davis to the fold to replace all their departing talent. After only beating UMBC by 1, it wasn't a great start. They did fight back from a double-digit deficit to win that game, but being down double digits to UMBC, I mean, maybe, but sure. Maybe it's just a second-year head coach finding his way still. But that's what makes the Chattanooga game interesting to me. Louisville lost to Chattanooga 81-71. If you look at it, Chattanooga's head coach, Dan Earl, is also a second-year head coach. Although last year Chattanooga did finish a little bit better than Louisville at 18-17, they are kind of in a lower level of basketball. Chattanooga also has 10 players on the roster that were not there last year. There's a lot of parallels between these two teams. And if you match up Louisville's roster, Chattanooga is smaller. Theoretically, they're less athletic. They were less recruited. And by all accounts, the teams have the same amount of time to get coached up by these two sophomore head coaches. If you put all the cards out, theoretically, Louisville should go out and win that game hands down. I mean, you have ACC recruits, taller, better talent. Theoretically, you should have a better coach. Everything else is even. Almost the same amount of new players on the team. Turnover from last season. Coach who's only been a head coach for 1 full season, and yet Louisville lost. They were outcoached, outplayed, they had low shooting percentages, the bench didn't add much, and they were outscored in both halves. And as far as the other games, since then, there are moments against Texas or Indiana where Louisville players look talented. They look like they know what they're doing, but Kenny Payne clearly just has no idea how to utilize them. Louisville will clearly be competitive, at least more competitive than last season, just based on what we've seen so far, but it seems like that's almost happening in spite of the coaching, not because of it. I mean, they just lost to Indiana after Indiana shot 9.3% from 3. When's the last time you saw a team shoot less than 10% from 3 and win a game in this era of basketball? I feel like 3 and inside play that we see so often, so much success from Alabama, it just doesn't happen. When you start missing from 3, you pretty much lose the game. Maybe this team can turn it all around, but I just don't see it. Honestly, the Texas game was the most complete game from Louisville this year so far, and if you're a Louisville fan, you might be glad you lost, because a win against a ranked Texas might just be enough fuel to keep that rebuild fire burning for Kenny Payne and keep him around for another year. If we look ahead, on the non-conference schedule, I see probably 3 more non-conference wins. And in the season, they do match up with Wake, Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, and I'll call all those games a toss-up. And then maybe they steal 1 or 2 more games somewhere else on their schedule. And that leaves them where? Somewhere between 8 and 11 wins? Look, I know that the projection had them at like 13, and I was guessing they'd be, a little bit ahead of that. I guess 11 wins is good, but it doesn't look good. And 11, I mean, I feel like you could just recruit any player at a lower-end ACC talent and walk your way to 11 wins depending on your schedule. Yeah, obviously Louisville couldn't even do that last year, but if I'm Louisville, I just don't see how this doesn't end with Danny Manning as an interim head coach again. And I'd love to be proven wrong, but I think I just misjudged this rebuild. I mean, hang in there, Cards fans. Your program is way too storied to not find success again, but I just wouldn't plan on finding it this year. We'll see.